Progress.
All right. Well, glad to see everyone again. Good morning. As you are coming in to the Zoom room, I'm going to go ahead and just ask that you mute so our presenters can have the floor. It's great to see you. Hope you're having a great institute. I know we just had a great keynote from Dr. Sue Carnell, kind of giving us the vision of the Michigan Department of Education going forward. And today's strand theme is around alternative education and flexible learning options. And we're going to start with just a few housekeeping things, and then I'll turn it over to John and our team there at the Innovation Academy. So again, thanks for joining us. Just a couple of refresher announcements for you all. The beat goes on. Hope you're staying upbeat and tuning in wherever you can. We'd ask that you stay muted throughout the presentation so that our presenters can have the floor. And if you've got questions, you can put them into the chat. And we didn't talk about this, but I'm sure John will address how, if they would like to answer questions throughout or at the end. And I'll leave that up to him and his co-presenters to determine that. Also, don't forget to join us tonight for the Virtual Family Feud event. You can find that link on the program. We surveyed over 100 people. You won't believe the answers to what they had to say. We are recording everything, and all the presentation materials and all the recordings will be made available to everyone. And then go back into that email that we sent, and there is a link to the sketch validation form. Remember, one person, one form. Do not fill out the form for each session. Fill out one form at the conclusion of the Institute. We're trying to save some time for you. And then certainly we encourage you to ask questions, be on camera as you can. We know many of us are wearing many hats and doing many jobs, but we so appreciate you being here. And with that, I'm going to introduce John LaGalo and his team at the Innovation Academy in Howell Public Schools to talk about much of their work on project-based learning. And so I'll turn it over to you, John. And I think that I accidentally muted you, so you might have to unmute as well. Here else.
Are we good now?
We're good. We can hear you.
All right. Hey, my name is John LaGalo. I'm principal here at the Innovation Academy, and I have with me the world's two best educators, and Dawn Webster. She's our English mentor. And then Jay McDowell, who's a little excited about the basketball game coming up, being a U of M grad. And he is our social studies mentor. But we're here today to talk to you guys about standards-based learning and project-based learning and how we do things here at Innovation Academy. So please, at any time, we're big believers in the teachable moment. So at any time, just unmute, ask a question, and we would be proud and happy to answer. And that really is the format that we want. Because as we do this, we raise a lot of questions because we are so different in our approach and how we do things. And we've had a lot of success in our short time. So I kind of just want to give you a quick little basics and history about IA, because it will bring into context what we really want to talk about, and that is the standards-based learning and project-based learning. So
that was locked.
Pat, we're trying to work through the PowerPoint. I hope you guys can see that.
We can see your main screen, the
we're
Innovation
trying to,
Academy.
hit the button to go to the next one.
Yeah, we seem to be locked.
Yay, technology.
There we go.
There we go.
So first off, I will say this: we're not big fans of Zoom and distant learning here at IA. So if I drop the ball on this, there is a reason. We try to avoid it at all costs here. So first off, like we are an alternative ed school. We like to say non-traditional. So we have a lot of things, and we just go about things totally differently. And I know all of you work in alternative ed. And so if like you see me have that, that twitch, that's because we've been here working with alternative ed students now for 4 years. And this is our first time we are graduating a group that started as freshmen. And so we're very excited about that. We have 9th through 12th graders. But how we go about this and with our program, most of our kids are in the 12th grade. We do have 190 students, and all of them are on diploma track. So, and that is something that we'll talk more about and how we get that, because our curriculum is all based on the Michigan Merit Curriculum, and we have spent a lot of time with that. So with our 190 students, 48 of them do have IEPs and 14 have 504s. And that's actually a low number of 504s. And the reason is we kind of talk about the school. Our school, we say this, is a living 504. So many students that come to us that have 504s, they don't need them anymore once they walk in our door, because by nature, we give extended time on everything. And you're allowed to go and roam free throughout the building. So there just isn't a need for the students, and the students see that once they get in and into our doors. So we have 7 teachers, 5 general ed teachers, two special ed teachers. We have a part-time youth counselor, and she is a youth counselor. She is here for social emotional. We contract her through the Youth Connections here at Howell. And so we purposely do that so she can talk to the kids a little bit more freely about certain things than maybe a school counselor would. We're not looking for, hey, what's your career or next step, because the mentors kind of take that on. We want somebody that's going to work with the social emotional support, work on depression, if you have addiction problems, those kind of things. And she is amazing. And again, you'll hear us talk about this, but we are all about social emotional learning before we are anything academically. We also have the world's greatest secretary, and then you have me as administrator. So those are kind of some of the basics. We don't have school on Wednesdays. And we looked at a lot of other schools how they structure their day and how they do things, but it has worked for us. There's only a few Wednesdays where we come in, like the first day of the year, it tends to be a Wednesday, and we come in on count days. But for the most part, we are designed to do that because it's give us 2 days, you get a day off. You give us 2 days, you got the weekend off. I know a lot of other alternative schools have done the Friday model, and I'm telling you, the Wednesday model has worked just outstanding for us too, just to give us that break. Not only with the kids, but it's like, man, it's a rough Monday. Hey, I only got 1 more day, and then I can get into Wednesdays. And Wednesdays, the staff, we come in, we meet, and we talk about the kids, and we have a stages of studenting, which can be a whole other 3-hour presentation. If you have questions about that, we'll gladly answer, but I'm just telling you, that's a Pandora's box right there, because it's something we're really excited. And we have an awesome other mentor that came up with that. So with us, there was a lot of time that went into this school before we opened. It wasn't just a fly-by-night. I mean, there are a lot of things that we did where we were building this as we were driving it. But really, there's a lot of smart and caring people within the district that saw a need and saw so many kids just falling through the cracks, whether it was just that they weren't getting enough attention, where it's just the fact that they were in a school. Howell High School has 2,200 kids. It used to be 2,400 before we opened. And we take kids throughout all of Livingston County. And we are a draw. And I will say that we have 190 kids. We actually have a waiting list of 40 kids trying to get in. We've had to cap it because what we're doing is we just had a lot of success. The first year we started off with like 80 kids and we graduated 30. This year, like I said, we're at 190. We're going to graduate close to 90 kids this year. And as we go through and we look at the data, it's like 99% of them would not have graduated had they stayed in their traditional setting. So what we do may seem different and weird, and like you guys are way, way off the shore, and we are, but we got there naturally. We got there because we kind of planned this trip that way, and it has just grown really bigger than I think maybe we ever hoped. And I'm just telling you, you see on a daily basis, we're making a difference with kids, which makes our job incredibly fulfilling. And I see that within the staff, and I'm very proud of that. So the other thing is that I want to talk about, like, because I see this a lot in alternative education, is that we do have the best teachers. I think a lot of times I see with alternative adult ed, community ed, a lot of times it is like, oh, the new teachers or the teachers that have are button heads with a certain principal. So there's a personality conflict, and it's a way to push kids. That's not what we have here. Teachers make the building, and the staff here is top notch. They want to be here. They want to work with these kids. They buy into our philosophy, and it makes all the difference. And so if you're talking about the most at-risk kids, and every kid here is at risk in at least 2 categories. And so with that, you got to have a mentality of wanting to get in and dig in and get dirty and work with these type of kids. So we spent, in fact, these teachers were actually building this before I was even hired. I was actually one of the later hires in this whole process. So they spent a lot of time, going into research and planning this out. It wasn't just a whim. There are reasons that we do some of the craziness that we do. The other thing that really is important is that we have central office and Board of Education approval. They're on board. And that's huge. They're always going to have somewhat of a say, and that's absolutely true. But for the most part, they don't trip us up and they let us fall on our face because we have. Because of that, we have some risk taking, and we're not afraid to try things. And hey, it didn't work. It's something we always talk about here, that I'd rather the staff ask for forgiveness than permission. And so that kind of stuff makes all the difference in the world. So they allow us to do our thing. And so kind of like to talk about our thing. And so we do have some kind of key core philosophies, and we'll get into them. So, my eyesight's so bad now, but one of our big philosophies is that education should not be cookie cutter. Every kid is going to come to us with different desires, different strengths, different goals, whatever it is. So education, should not look the same for each kid. So for our kids, and it takes a lot of work, but for all 190 kids, it is really like every kid has their own IEP. Now, 48 of them actually specifically have an IEP, but we design everything towards each individual kid. So kids nobody has the same schedule. They're here on different days, different times, on different needs, and we allow that flexibility. We work under the Michigan State MDE seat time waiver. And if we did not have that, if the state did not support us in that, we would not be able to be as creative as we are working with kids and allowing kids to do certain things, because again, we're going to take care of the social emotional piece first. And that is, some kids might need to be at home in the morning to take care of babies and younger siblings. Or we have some kids that need to come in, do their school, and get the heck out so they can work and provide for their families. We have that flexibility and creativity to do those things under the seat time waiver. And that is certainly huge. So because of that, and everything's individualized, everything here is student-centered. it is all student centered. That's again, a great testament to our staff. The egos have to go aside, and it is really based on what our kids want to do and learn. And so this is another thing we always talk about, is that we are mostly school, but we are 40% teen center. You know, kids come in, we have a pantry. So, you know, every excuse or every argument that a kid has or any barrier, we try to remove that, whether it's food, hygiene, lack of, you know, friends, whatever it is, we try to remove those things. And we put a lot of things in place. So you come in, and this is the one thing I'll say over and over. We do a lot of tours, and we certainly would welcome anyone coming in. The one thing people say as they come in and they leave is like, this is the first alternative school that really feels alternative. And we take a lot of pride in that quote. And we hear that over and over from people. And you can come in and you might see kids napping. They're allowed to. You could come in and see kids playing video games. They're allowed to. We are going to make this a place, because you've had kids that have hated school for so long and so much, that we want them to come. And then we'll worry about the other stuff later. And that's why one of the bullets up there, and it's one of our core philosophies, is it's Maslow over balloons. We're going to take care of that social emotional piece first, and then we'll start cranking away at the academics. So everything we do here is relationship based. It's mentorship based. Every of the 190 kids, we divide them up, and the mentors have, you know, a certain kid. Now, all the mentors work with all the kids, and we have that ownership, but we try to pair each student with at least one specific mentor that they have the best relationship with. So that way they can communicate with, feel comfortable the most with, and that way we just set up the plan that you know, works for them. So again, we take a long-term approach. We take a long-term game and view on the kids. And we say that all the time. And we've seen that, and that patience work. And we've had a lot of kids that have just come in, and you can fill in the blank with whatever problem. We have seen it all now in our 4 years, and this really does work. I will say this, we're not for everyone. And we have learned that. That our approach to how we do things, it's okay. Like when I say we're successful, we're not 100% successful. You know, we're not. Like we have things like open campus. And we give the kids a key card so they can come in, because everyone's on different schedule. So there are things, or parents that like don't feel comfortable with that. Like we don't have scheduled classes bell to bell. You know, and those are the things like, hey, then there are other great alternative schools out there. This is the approach we've taken, and it works. And I'm telling you, when we started it, I was scared. Like when you're seeing kids like leave to go to the gas station, like, oh Lord, but it works. And especially a lot of times the stereotypes we deal with in the alternative setting, like, oh, you got these horrible kids and you got these bad kids, and you look at the log entries in Power School, and you know they go on for days. And we found that when you treat them a certain way and you put them in the setting, most of them respond. And when you really build relationships and you talk with kids, they do respond. Look, I mean, but again, it's how we approach things, you know, and that's really how we work with kids. So if you come in here and you hear a kid cuss, I mean, we're not okay with it, but we're not kicking them out or writing them up for it. It's, you know, hey Brady, like, enough of the F-bombs, but we're not, you know, running you out for that stuff. If you see a kid that's wearing a marijuana leaf for a hat, or they got a hoodie on, we're not making a big deal. It's like, hey, you're here today, like that. So we try to avoid a lot of the things. And so these core philosophies are important, which allows us to get into the things that we really want to talk with you about today. And that's our standards and our project based, because if all that stuff, good Jay, all that stuff, if we didn't have those philosophies, this wouldn't make a bit of difference. If those things weren't taken care of, all these things about project-based and standard learning and all this formative assessment stuff we're going to talk about is pointless. The kids have to feel welcomed and want to be here and have that buy-in, and then they will. That's why when we talk about the standards-based and project-based learning, the title for this slide is Feeding Deer. And we have another just outstanding mentor who was the AP physics and AP calculus teacher over at Howell High School. And he has coined that term, and he's absolutely right. You don't know when the deer are going to come and feed, so we have to be ready for them. But we got to take care of their needs first. And then when they're hungry, we can start piling in the education, and we design projects around everything that they do. So I know it's a horrible picture, but what we do is we have a standard sheet, and we actually have there's about 120 standards. So what we have is we looked at the 18 credits that are needed to graduate to earn a diploma. And then we went through, and the team spent a lot of time with this before we opened. What are those powered standards in each class? We pulled them out and then compiled this book, and it really becomes like a checklist. And so on your screen is one page of what a standard sheet for each kid looks like. And each kid has this, and this is something that the mentors work with. And so what it is how we label it is that if they already come to us and have shown that they've learned it, we mark that green. And if they have an A or a B in that, we put an M that they shown mastery. If they've learned it while with us, we color it blue. And again, a P for us means that they've shown proficiency, that they have learned that standard. But each class has the different standards that it needs. And then for us, it's either M or P, red, blue, or green. And red just means that they just haven't learned it yet. They haven't shown proficiency. And so you graduate with us when your list is no longer red. So a kid that would come to us in 9th grade is going to come all red. Most of our kids, though, come later on in 11th and 12th grade. And so they come to us, they already have some green. And then we just work them through. And because kids come in and they can work at their own pace and everything's individualized towards them, we find that they start to crank things out very quickly. So I hope, is all this making sense? Am I talking too fast? Are we bueno?
Sounds good, John.
All right. So again, if you guys have questions, speak up. I'm telling you, I got the two experts sitting right next to me. So as we do this, the kids, a lot of times they come in and they feel hopeless and they feel like they're not going to graduate. And then we sit down with them and we put together a plan, and then we design the plan around their interests. You know, we have kids that, what is it that you like doing? So some kids don't want to do 100 math problems. So we have kids that want to build things. So we use math to have them, and they're building sheds, right? We have kids that, they don't want to read the book that the English teacher gave them. And I'm not interested in Kill a Mockingbird. I know it's a great book, but they don't find it interesting. We don't make them read it. What do you want to read? What are you interested in? Oh, you like LeBron James? Well, then, hey, let's read about LeBron. Then it changes. It just changes things. And when they understand that it's about them, and then they have the ownership, the school really flips. And so I say this all the time to kids, but if you're bored here, it's your own damn fault. It really is. If you're bored at a traditional high school, or you're bored at other schools, that really does fall on the teachers in a lot of ways. And I believe that when I was in the classroom, it was my job in a regular classroom to entertain and to educate. Here, because they are the biggest part of their own future, they have that. And so if kids are bored here, it really is their own fault. And because of that, there isn't always a lot of boredom. We say it's kind of organized chaos in a lot of ways. So like with the standards, and I'll give you another example since we're talking about this. Like one of the standards for biology, you go into biology and you look at the state standards, it's about learning photosynthesis. And this is always one of my favorite examples, because we are big into differentiation and individualize. So that standard for photosynthesis, you have to learn it, you have to show proficiency. Well, we want to know with each kid, what are your strengths? How are you going to learn it? We have some kids that are really quiet and don't want to talk but like to write. So maybe they write a little report about photosynthesis because that's their style of learning, and we'll do that. Then you have some kids who do not like to write, but will talk your ear off. So they'll sit with the science mentor, and the science mentor will, they'll tell them all about photosynthesis. Or you have some kids that are really artsy. So maybe they make a drawing about photosynthesis. You have some kids who don't like any of that. So maybe they go out to our garden and grow something. You have some kids who would be more motivated working with their friends. So maybe they're allowed to do a group project. Maybe you do a little drawing and a little writing. It's whatever works for each kid. And it allows us to be incredibly creative. And the things that these mentors come up with is amazing. And again, the kids take ownership and they start to feel good about themselves, and they start to see that their standard sheet starts to change color, and they feel good about it. And they realize that's why, again, we've had kids who come in, quote unquote, behind at Howell High School, which says you need 26 credits to graduate. And they come to us and it's like, hey, here's your laundry list. What do you want to tack on? And the other great thing about our kids and how we go about it with the standards and with the project base, we have complete freedom here. So we might have a kid come in the morning and start building a birdhouse, and they want to, and then they're bored. So then they go in the expression lab and start rapping on doing a podcast, and they get English that way. And you can stop and do that. If you're like, I'm bored with something, or it's like, what is it that you like to do? We have kids that, that like Minecraft. So, hey, and then what do you like about history? I've always been interested in the pyramids. Well, hey, let's go into Minecraft and use Minecraft and build the Sphinx. But that's the creativity of the mentors working along with them. And one of the big problems we have, and I know these two will say this because I see this, a lot of our kids come to us and they're like deer in headlights, back to the feeding deer analogy, because they're like, oh crap. They freeze because they're like not used to having all this freedom. Like, what do you mean I can do this? And so a lot of times we've had to, with those kids, take an infant approach and hey, well, what about this? But we really like it when the kids come up with their own projects. So with that, last year, we had an amazing team compete and build an electric car. Awesome. They built an electric car from scratch. We won square one competition, just amazing. Some of those kids graduated, and this year, we thought, they're just not interested. We're okay with that. But what they are interested, we found that they like drones. So that means that, hey, we go buy drone stuff and, go to the pool, and they're in an underwater drone competition now. But we have to be flexible. So if you come in with a mindset that I'm going to teach this, this is not the school for you. There's these are not the droids you're looking for. So you have to have, that's why I go back, like you have to have these core philosophies in place or this is pointless. If you don't have the good teachers in place, all this stuff is just gobbledygook talk. Again, when you're putting in a plan for anything, it's where the rubber meets the road and it's what really happens. And you have to be prepared for that. Kids come in, they had a bad day. You thought like, hey, they're gonna work on the drone then today. They were excited about it. And then today, no. It's because mom and dad kept them up late last night because they were arguing. You have to be prepared. We always say it this way, and we joke, but it's like when you walk in the door as a teacher, you better be prepared that the fire hose is going to spray you right when you get in, because you never know what kind of problem you're stepping into, but you have to be ready for that. And again, we have really good people in really good places that allow us to take that philosophy and work with the kids like that. So we don't have like homework. We don't have deadlines. None of that stuff is mandatory. Yeah, I'm sorry. Is there a question? Please speak up. No?
No, I'm saying there might be a comment.
Oh.
Looks like there's a comment.
So
Yeah, John, you're getting a lot of good kudos and comments. And then there was a question from Adnan about wanting to know if you would be able to share that standard sheet or like an example of that.
yes, I can. If you send, well, at the end, I have my email. Write me an email and I certainly can get that for you. And that's how we'll go about it. Now we have no problem sharing here. Like I said, that's what good teachers do. We steal from other people. In fact, we actually went to, well, these guys did, because before I was even hired, they went to a conference about alternative ed, walked in there like, this is not what we want to do. We've been to other schools and we're like, that's what we want to do. And so we're always stealing. And I think good educators certainly do that. So to go back, homework isn't mandatory. There are no deadlines. You work on something, whenever you come back is where you pick up. So you don't ever feel behind. Now saying that, what we do have with each kid is we do have a standard completion day. So for every senior, if you want to graduate, your standards do need to be done by a certain day. For this year, it's May 6th. The kids that plan on graduating and graduating this year, they need to be done for May 6th. So a kid that comes into us in 10th grade, again, we're taking a long-term approach. Their standard completion day is going to be 3 years from now. So we don't have semesters. There's no quarters. We take a kid and again, we're taking this long-term approach with them. So what problems has that caused? Again, like I said, we're not for everyone, but what it has done is kids that come to us, we have to be a destination school, because not everybody is on board with what we do as standards. Because you could be working on maybe you've done 2 biology standards, and then you worked, but you didn't finish all the biology standards. So if a kid leaves and goes to Fowlerville High School, Fowlerville's like, I don't know what to do with that on a transcript, so that's why we sit down with each kid and each family beforehand. And I do this, like, you need to know what you're buying. I'm not a used car salesman. This is what you're buying, because we're taking this kind of approach and it has worked. And again, we know things come up and life happens, but and people have to move and this and that, but it really is. And that's why, like, all our 9th graders and 10th graders, we do have a lot of kids that apply as 9th graders. We really try to push them towards Howell High School first, and not because, of like anything other than we're a destination school. It's very tough to start with us and then go to another school, and because we're not on credits, we're on standards. And so that is just an open, honest conversation we have with each family. because part of our philosophy is we don't. And if they don't finish those standards by that standard completion day of their senior year, they've got to do a 5th year. And we do have kids that happens. It's actually very few, but like this year, I think we had like 6 or 7, and all those kids, because they're back their 5th year, like, man, they kind of can finish, and get their stuff done. So with this, one other thing, and I want to share, is that because the kids are on their own pace, if they finish early with all their standards, we then do a couple things, and we call it the capstone project. Because again, so if you finish your standards early, we then will start to dual enroll you, and then we'll help you with those college classes. And you can start earning college credits. And I'll be honest, out of all our kids so far, nobody has failed a dual enrollment. Nobody has failed a dual enrollment class yet, because we have the mentors here that will help them write papers, help them study for tests. We're not just, throwing them out to the wolves. And then a lot of our kids, because they've never felt good about school and education, they start taking these classes like at LCC or Washtenaw Community. They're like, oh, I can do this, But again, another thing to explain about the school and standards-based learning, not every university takes our transcript because of it. They don't. The great majority do. And this is something, and I'm just going to be honest, that's a higher ed problem. That's not an us problem. And I see more and more schools adapting to what we're doing and understanding what we're doing. And I've met with university admissions people, like if they're not there, that's actually where they're moving, is towards us and understanding what we're doing. But kids and families need to know that, like, if you're coming to us, I'm sorry, Michigan's off the table. But the cool thing is, and let's be honest, why they're with us is that's not what their goal is to begin with. And so the fact that we can get them to buy in and believe and get them to Washtenaw or Lansing community, we take a lot of pride in that. And so last year, what was our graduation number? I think 50. I think last year was like 53. It's in the 40s of how many kids went off to college. Now, we're not around long enough to know how they have the data of how good they've done once they've gone. I do kind of feel that a lot of them will struggle, not because of academically, but the reason they're here with us is social emotional, and colleges aren't always gonna, focus on social emotional first before the academics. I hope that makes sense. Now, I'm not trying to bash on higher ed, because love what they do, but they do take a philosophical different approach. So I know I've done most of the talking. I really, would love to take questions from you guys. And again, if I run through this and we finish early, and I get you guys to tip off at 12:15 a Michigan game, I'm not going to be, you're not hurting my feelings. I'm just letting you know. But we can talk all day about this stuff. And I know I talk fast, but it's something we're just incredibly excited and proud of. So, again,
Are there any questions from anybody? You kind of touched a little bit about this, John, but Angela Izzo had a couple of questions there, and you talked about some of them. But Angela, I don't know if you want to unmute or in a space to type. Did you want to? She had talked a little bit about how do you students find your program? Counselors, parents, what does that look like within the county?
That is a great question. And so we are an independent high school from Howell High School. We have our own graduation. The only thing that we partner with them on now is prom and homecoming, just because we really don't offer as good of an experience with that as that our kids want. But other than that, we are separate. But our lifeline comes from Howell High School, and they now, I really give them kudos. And it's taken years, but they now really have identified what kids will work in our setting. That this isn't a dump to school. Like we go about things differently. And so it takes a certain kind of kid. But because of that, that's why we have so many kids, but really our main lifeline is the identification of our type of students that are falling through the cracks at Howell High School. So of our 190 kids, 150 of them are from Howell High School. We do get, because now we've had success, we do get kids from all over the county. And that's why I think also central office loves us. And I will say this, we bring in kids, and again, it's not a competition but I wish more people would take on this approach, because you'll see that it does work. And so with that, we have success, which allows us to have more freedom and more support of working with kids, because they know that we have trust. So most of our kids come from Howell High School, but word of mouth, we have an application process. I interview and meet each kid beforehand. And like I said, these are things we talk about. And the one thing look for with each kid, and it is another philosophy that we have. We don't care here about your past. We're concerned about your future. And we do an excellent job of that. But there is one quality I look for in every kid and every family, and that is, do you want to be here? That's why my last question with every interview and kids that I meet are, on a scale of 1 to 20, how much do you want to be here? And that's really, to me, the most important question out of all the other questions. All the other questions that we're meeting with kids is just getting to know them and what I think would work for them, because we're starting to develop each individual kid's plan. As they come in, but it has also gotten kind of competitive of who we bring in. Like I said, because we've had so much interest in kids coming in, and we've just had to be like, hey, I'm sorry, we're not accepting students right now, and that's why we have a waiting list of 40 kids. And once this group graduates in May, it's not going to take long to fill up the next group. And that is another thing too. It is capped at 190. We can't go any bigger. What we do, and I already worry about this. And if the staff wasn't so amazing, it's almost like they're the victim of their own success. I don't want any more kids. Not that we can't save anymore, but offering to do what we do and how much heavy lifting goes into one kid, we can't. We couldn't do what we do with any more kids. We just couldn't. So that is something I keep my eye on. So I do have to tell people when we get there, hey, I'm sorry, we'll have openings in May or this, but that is what we do. So that's a great question.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, John. And Angela, yeah, go ahead.
Follow-up. So since you have a cap, how do you prioritize the students? That's one. And I was curious on if they're off track with their cohort group, and if you lean more towards the upperclassmen. So that's one. And then the second part of my question is, if a student finishes all of their requirements before their cohort, you did mention the capstone. So
Yep.
you don't allow them to graduate prior to their cohort. You try to start them on a capstone.
Correct.
So that,
Because if you're,
so I understood that correct.
yep. So if you finish as even as a junior, you've shown like, hey, you can do this. Let's get you going in college, and that is what we do. The only kids we have finished early, and I've allowed for that is kids that are enrolling in the military that are 18 already. But other than that, we really do a good job of like, hey, look, you are smart enough, just try college. And it works. Go back. There was I don't think I forgot your. Oh, so what we do and what I do, and it does, it makes it tough. And you almost feel like at times, like, I hate this bad analogy, but like Schindler's List, but I do focus on seniors first. Because they don't have the time. Like if there is a 10th grader, like when it comes down to this and certain spots, it's the 9th and the 10th graders that get pushed out, that tend to be because we got time to catch them. the time is shorter for the seniors. So that's why with our school of 190, we only have about 10 ninth graders. So it's not that we don't accept ninth graders, but again, we want to make sure like you are there. You've exhausted all your possibilities at traditional school because we're here to catch you. The ninth graders that we do have, because again, we get to know each story. It's like when we sit down and meet with them, it's like, yeah, you need to be here. Like you're gonna, it's just obvious, like you're gonna struggle. Like they have no doubts that this is where they want to be. This is what they need. There's no looking back. And that's a mistake we made our very first year, to be honest. And again, that's when I talk about like we fell on our face. Like that was something we didn't understand. Like the biggest factor is, do you want to be here? And the kids that do, they meet our expectations because they want to be here. So
It looks like Heather has a question. Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, hi. No, this whole thing's super inspiring. Thank you for sharing. And I was really interested to hear about your dual enrollment pieces. And I was also wondering if you have in the past or do integrate like a co-op work-based learning with the kids,
Yes.
like credit if they have a job.
yes, I didn't explain that, but that is a whole piece we do have. We actually encourage our kids to do those things. Because again, education, it's individualized. So we have kids right now that know that they want to be plumbers. So that is really what, obviously we did have them put in a dishwasher in the school. Yes. And we have things like washer and dryers here on campus for those, not just for those kids to like do those kind of projects and learn, but also to fill those basic needs. But no, we highly encourage our kids to work, and we work around that, and we try to partner them in the fields that they want to go into.
And one of the things we try to do, I know in a traditional school, a co-op gets a grade, you take co-op class and then you get an A, B, or C in co-op. We try to go into what that job is and find the math
Yes.
standards that they should get for being a plumber, finding the English standards they might get for whatever job they're doing. If there's some social, so it's usually math and science that come out of what our kids do, but that way they can complete standards that the high school has or that we have, and it's not just a one-off class over here that they get an A on, but they're actually working towards graduation and those standards they need to complete.
And another thing, and I apologize, and this is where Dawn is just amazing, but one of the things that we do, and also we streamline education, we call it double dipping. So like those kids, like Jay was saying, like that are plumbing and doing that, well, then they'll work with Dawn and they can like write a paper or verbalize with Dawn, like what they're doing. So they get English standards, right? So we call it double dipping. So if a kid wants to, like, back to the photosynthesis example, say a kid, is gonna give that oral report on photosynthesis, or they want to write a paragraph on photosynthesis. We use Seesaw, and so we post everything, and so then they're getting English standards along. The days of, hey, I got to write a paper for government class, but I didn't turn in my paper for English class. That's pointless. You proved that you could write in government. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And I guess I'm curious too, like, I don't know if this is too detailed, but like with that standard sheet, when you're like identifying them within a work site, are you actually like looking at that with the employer or the supervisor of like, kind of like, could you review this list and let me know what this person does on site with you? Or I'm coming from like, I used to be a work-based learning coordinator, like issuing credit co-op to like, I'm trying to kind of think through like what that process could really look like in more of your setting for myself, like if I applied that.
Well, the gold standard would be for the kid to come to us and say, hey, I'm doing this job. Here are the standards I think, fit into this job. But that's the gold standard. Doesn't happen very often. It really is about conversations with the kid. Okay, in your job, what are you doing? Okay, well, do you do this? Well, do you measure that? Do you ever use a tape measure? Okay, why are you using that tape measure? And so it's time intensive to figure out with the kid, but it's always with the kid that that job setting.
And really, that's not any different than in a hobby that the kid might have or things that they do at home. We find out some of them are doing huge projects at
Yes.
home, rebuilding cars and doing all kinds of things. And so we can find the standards in that as well. But they don't even recognize it. They think it's just fun, They're like, no, that's actually work. So,
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could take, physical education is one of those things, in traditional high schools, you can play a varsity sport, but you still got to go to gym, right? Well, that to have awarded by us, or we make you run a mile if what your job is that you bike, 5 miles a day to deliver stuff. So, it really is about trying to find what the kids can tell us they already know so that we can move on to other things or fun things, other skills that they can learn.
So give you like another example, we had a student, mom, born and raised in Jordan and, comes to our country and awesome kid, and he can speak Arabic, fluent Arabic. Well, why does he need to take a foreign language, right? Like he already knows a foreign language. He speaks it better than like, so we then use those and he can demonstrate mastery in all these foreign language standards because he just can. So why should he have to sit there in 2 years of a class of some foreign language he really doesn't want, like Spanish, when he's already incredibly fluent in a foreign language more than any other kids that walk out of, to come see high school or Howell High School in whatever foreign language they took, right? Like that makes no sense to us. So those are the kind of things like we gear around each kid's project, and their interests.
Thank you all for that. Any other questions? Given some lag time in case somebody has to find their mute button. Well, if you do have any other questions, you can put them in the chat and we will get those over to John and Dawn and Jay. But I just want to thank you. Oh yeah, Angela was I want to ask my boss for a field trip. And actually, John, as you were thinking, I was thinking it'd be great if we could organize a visit to come see you all, open it up to the membership at the association and maybe get, like 20 people or 15 or however many and set that up with you. I think that would be awesome.
We would love to have you. Just you're not coming on a Wednesday. That's it. Because you're going to want to see things in action. So yeah, we have people come in all the time and yeah, we are very proud of that. So you have my email address, please reach out to me. I will get back to you. Jay will get back to you, Dawn. These two are amazing because again, it's part of what we do with our kids. It's the expectation. Kids are constantly reaching out to them at all times and they have to be available for that. So
absolutely. Well, thank you all so much again. Thank you for taking your time. We know that this is one of many things that you're responsible for and you're doing. So we appreciate you taking a break from all of that and then working on this. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone for attending. And we're going on a break now for lunch and our next session will start at 1 o'clock. So take care, everybody. Thanks again, John and Dawn.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Go blue.
Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely go
I was
blue.
gonna say that, but I'm wearing green, so I didn't know if it
Here we're for St. Patrick's Day.
was.
All right. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.